No way. Oh my god! $242 million! Do you know how much money that is?
Met the boy who manipulates and committed Genesis, none other than our boy Malone Lam, a 20-year-old engineer genius, uses his knowledge of blockchain to hack into infrastructures. But how did he do it? Well, let's unfold this here in today's story. The scam began on August 19, 2024. A group of young adults pulled off one of the largest recorded crypto heists. Malone Lam, 20-year-old, and members of this group. They targeted a single Genesis creditor for an audacious and confident play that, at least for now, has paid off to the tune of a staggering $230 million worth of Bitcoin. But how did they do it? With basic hacking skills and clever social engineering, they used a stratagem that dates back centuries. They hacked into human nature. The creditors who met their fate didn't know what hit them. There was a vital problem with their account. For this day, the team had readied, and for a long while it seemed they had committed themselves to the perfect plan as they were into the art of social engineering, a technique often used by con artists. But it isn't the elite style of the pickpocket. They coin into the human mind. Via, leading the clueless creditor account in their hands. Social engineering plays as old as dirt, but still effective. Prompt for truth with a series of questions, and when the mark doesn't know the answers, substitute your answers for their not known answers. With the appropriate documents in hand, Jeandiel Serrano, the group's tech-savvy member, got to work. He used the information gleaned from the call to penetrate the digital wallet belonging to the creditor. Meanwhile, Danish Khan, the mastermind who had plotted the whole scheme, made sure Jeandiel worked quickly and steadily. If they were going to pull this off, they had to do it efficiently. If they dawdled too long, the creditor might figure out something was amiss and lock everything down. And then there was Chen, the member of the group responsible for logistics, who had set everything up so perfectly that they all might as well have been invisible. The operation, from inception to conclusion, was so undetectable that the members could have carried "We're guilty" placards around and not have been any more likely to get caught. After all was set, they performed the transfer, and in an instant, $230 million worth of Bitcoin was being rerouted into their carefully constructed network of wallets. In the end, the seductive aura of an extravagant lifestyle can all too easily tempt people to make decisions that are bound to have disastrous outcomes. In a very real sense. But even the life of a person under the watchful eye of the authorities has its boundaries. The question now was, how much was too much? And when was Malone going to need to face the music and blow back considerably more than $720,000 worth of Bitcoin to balance the apparent ledgers of life he had been living? The situation was grave for the crew. They were under a police investigation, and if Malone was the weak link, and he was given his history of getting loose under pressure, then it wasn't hard to see who they might be in no small part similar to, or in no small part be. The crew was griming its way into all sorts of illegalities, and now it had to figure out how, if at all, to get back to the legal side of things. Their best shot for that? Unbelievable as it sounds, integrate the counterfeit cash they'd printed so far into the economy in a way that would attract as little attention as possible. Malone existed in a society where he was not merely well off, but well off in appearance. He was not just a wealthy individual, he was a wealthy individual whose image was one of consummate luxury and appeared to offer too good to be true. That itself raises some questions for and about him. What isn't clear is whether even living the luxury life offers any real fulfillment. When we think of the newly rich as being unfettered by any concern for financial responsibility, we might imagine someone like Malone. He and his inner circle certainly behave in ways that are consistent with, indeed, that exemplify, what we might think of as the lifestyle of a lotto loser. If there is such a thing as a lotto loser's lifestyle, it is one that centers on self-indulgence and a not-so-subtle display of one's wealth. Whether on land or sea, Malone and his companions partake of a series of pastimes that are exactly the opposite of thrift, and a very vivid form of living large. The same goes for the poor taste, let us speak plainly, with which he and they do so. Malone's evolution from consumer to investor has the appearance of a genuine tectonic shift in his financial trajectory. And while we might interpret the shift as one of age and experience from the projects he did when he was younger, this is more about an inherent classiness and smartness to the acquisitions he's making now, which aren't focused on the trends that come and go. What Malone seems to be doing is assembling a kind of portrait of himself in the kinds of financial transactions that truly wealthy people make. Picking up items that are legendarily smart holds, which retain their value for an impressively long time. Certainly, not everyone could or would attempt what Malone has. His account is far from being a reckless display of self-indulgence. In fact, he probably reflects a lot of what is typical for wealthy young men today. When a wealthy young man today goes to Malta, his presence there is not, of course, an act of imperialism. Still, it is a presence that comes with a significant degree of privilege and power, a power that might be better used in a manner reflecting the good that money can do. Malone's tale and his tragic foray into the realm of crime provide a good warning about wealth, fame, and the law. For a while, he seemed to be living in the golden state, enjoying the untouchable life that comes with a bounty of riches, and seemed to be ascending, if not quite there yet, to a godlike status where no mortal challenge could knock him down. He had lots of enemies, though, and those foes, in whatever way they tell his tale, are part of the picture. Instead of merely watching events unfold, researchers like ZachXBT were dedicated to tracking the movement of stolen cryptocurrencies after they had been taken. Their method of doing this might strike some people as a way of following a transparent trail left by wayward assets, a trail that is paradoxical given the common narrative that blockchain technology enables the private transacting of business between people whose identities are not known. Yet for us, following the trail on the blockchain is merely looking through a window into the workings of a private system. Malone's partners in crime, Box and Wiz, made a series of unfortunate mistakes that compounded their already sad situation. The basic economics of our digital age may tempt would-be criminals to believe that using new electronic tools can make them more effective and safe, but the old wisdom about needing to be discreet and cautious should still apply. Yet these two not-so-dynamic duo members of a would-be crime wave seem to have been carried away by overconfidence and really wanting to be YouTube stars. So they recorded their not-so-secret nefarious plan for all the world to see. The investigation reached its conclusion on September 19, 2024, resulting in a raid on Malone's elaborate Miami mansion, where he lived a life that was too soon to be forfeited. When you see an image of Malone being led away in handcuffs, surrounded by FBI agents and postal inspectors, it's impossible not to feel some irony. For more than a decade now, rebuffing service of process has been a motif of Malone's life. And in an alternative history of US law enforcement that never quite made it to the big screen, he might just be the kind of guy they paint as a villain. To recap, in American Crypto, How the Cipher Mysteries of the Past Can Be Solved, former National Security Agency employee Malin D. Box teams up with writer Stephen A. Wiz to bring us this true tale of both ciphers and crimes committed under their cover. The book that prompted this chapter to be written had a cover that teased "Catch me if you can." The link between Malone, Box and Wiz, and the story I tell here, is an ideal one to illustrate what is a very 21st century crime. And not simply because financial crime went mainstream at the dawn of our current century. This moment in time has the twin vices of being very much about money and very much about rights, What's at stake isn't just the financial lifeblood of these three characters and the prologue to our nation's story, but also the individual constitutional rights that bind us as a nation. If the police can seize property without due process to stop them, then who benefits from that? Critics would say the police and prosecutors follow the money to secure even more funding for a criminal justice system that seems to be both overlarge and unfriendly. To be clear, Malone might have a good deal of unclaimed cash left, but the feds are likely to take back he's found on the luxury side of life. When he bought those things, he was using money he earned from internet fraud, which is just next in line after armed robbery for being a risky way to make a living.
Jesus, Malone, this is next level. Malone, you're not stopping tonight.